everybody. Welcome to another weekly episode of the Co-Living Code Show every Wednesday. My name's Christine McDaniel, CEO of Kindred, which is software for the co-living industry. And this week, we actually have a return guest again. Originally came on back in July of 2018, Rob Birch with Gravity Co-Living. And then we also brought on Riccardo Tesaro, which is one of the co-founders. So they came on together. They gave us tons of fun updates. They hadn't even launched yet the first time we had spoken, and now they're in London, getting ready to launch into other cities around the world. So I'll read their bios and we'll launch into this week's episode. So Ricardo has been working in the private equity and venture capital industry between Tel Aviv, Bangkok, and Hong Kong before joining Bricks Capital in 2014. Ricardo worked on a variety of deals within their alternative real estate portfolio, including hotel and student accommodation assets with a combined GDV in excess of 400 million pounds, also playing a key role in the development of the True Student Living brand with over 2,500 units. Ricardo was involved in all aspects of the business, from branding, tech, operations, acquisitions, and sales. And in 2018, Ricardo co-founded Gravity Co-Living with Susanna Rock. And Rob Birch began working within hospitality straight out of university, quickly progressing to the managing director and head of expansion for Hostel One, responsible for the guest experience strategy, setup, and operations of all new and existing properties. With this experience, Rob set up his own hospitality consultancy, worked on a variety of projects ranging from surf camps, hotels, bars, cafes, and hostels around the world. And having experienced the benefits of co-living firsthand, he joined Gravity Co-Living as their first hire and has led the development of their operational structure. Gravity Co-Living, aimed at young professionals, offers hassle-free, convenient, and flexible accommodation options within major cities around the world, with community at its center. With unconventional design, Gravity can implement its three major community pillars, which are professional growth, personal well-being, and meaningful engagement, letting all its members live by what matters. So welcome to this episode. We bring on Ricardo and Rob this week to give us updates on their growth with Gravity Co-Living. Hello, everybody. This week, we have another return guest and his co-founder. So I've got Rob Birch and Riccardo Tesaro. They're with Gravity Co-Living out in London. And Rob Birch came on way back at the beginning. It was July 2018. He came on just to do the interview for the Co-Living Code book. And then we started a podcast and show out of it. So welcome to this week's show, you guys. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for having us.
Nice to be back.
Yes.
This interview now.
Perfect. And Ricardo, we haven't met in person, but you said we've been at some of the same conferences, right?
Yes, yeah, we did. I think last time I saw you was at a class of 2020.
In Berlin.
In Berlin, yeah.
Awesome. And then you guys are in London right now?
Yes, we are. We're just working out of our building here in Finsbury Park in the co-working area. So we're both here now.
It is gorgeous. So catch us up from back when we first spoke. I know you guys hadn't launched yet. So maybe kind of catch us up from like how long ideations took to build out to actual occupancy.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I believe last time you guys spoke was about a year ago, maybe.
Yeah, just about a year and a half ago. It was just at the beginning. So we were still searching for a property back then and getting our kind of business strategy all in place. Since then, we were looking at several different properties in London, but finally found our first site in Finsbury Park. I guess you can talk a bit more about that then. Yeah.
So we met the owners of the development while it was under construction. It was a local family office here in London. We were lucky enough to meet them, as I said, pretty much halfway through construction. So we had a pretty good input on the design and procurement of the building. So the building itself is actually divided in two blocks with a central courtyard. It's roughly 1,500 square meters overall, with 34 en-suite bedrooms, shared kitchens. We have a co-working space, a dining area, lounge where people can relax, where we organize events and activities, and so you can actually see part of it on the background. So yeah, the building was open on September the 9th, 2019. We have agreed on a 10-year lease with the owners. We're also looking at other projects with them in the same area here in Finsbury Park. I'm not sure how much you know about Finsbury Park as an area within London, but it's an up-and-coming area. It's very close to some of the trendy hotspots like Stoke Newington, Dalston, Islington in general. It's literally we're 5 minutes away from Finsbury Park Station, which has the two of the main tube lines pass through here. So you can literally get to Mayfair, to Victoria, the City, King's Cross. Basically, all the main business hubs within London are 15 minutes away from here by public transport, which is great given they were targeting young professionals.
I love that. And then, so the 10-year lease, do you guys do a 10-year master lease? And then did you arrange a profit sharing or no? Like it's just.
No. So we had different discussions with the owners initially. I'd say management agreement was not even considered, both from us and from the owners, simply because the property was too small and we didn't have a track record at that time. We discussed predominantly a lease pretty much right away. I guess the lease we signed, it's a base lease with base rent only. We've also offered the opportunity of a kicker, a profit share to the owners, but at this stage we have agreed on a base rent only lease.
Got it. Okay, good to know. And I know there was big news over there on Friday. And I know this episode will air in a few weeks out, but Brexit ended up happening. So what has that done? That blew my mind. I didn't think they were going to leave the EU. So has that changed anything at all, or just is it business as usual for you guys?
Yeah, I'd say business as usual. I mean, nothing has really changed. To be honest, if anything, it's getting better. As in, there's more deals in the market. People finally know what they want to do, especially developers. So I think it's actually planning out quite well for us, I think.
Also regarding the actual like our members, like more people are less likely, if they're not from the UK, to look to buy at this stage, but rather would like to take a mini step into moving to London to see what it's like and to see what the future holds for the city and for the country in general. So a lot more of the kind of overseas kind of members are more open to the co-living idea because they're not still 100% sure what will actually happen in the future. So yeah, from our perspective, it seems to be going quite well, even though it was a bit of a turbulent period. But there we go.
No, I'm good. See, I love keeping the show so positive. That's why I'm glad I asked you guys. No, you're right. I think it was that long period of limbo where like people didn't know, like, are we leaving? Are we staying? What are we doing? And now there's been a decision that's been made, and we'll see what the future holds for the UK. So that's really good to hear. I love that. And then, I know London itself, it's 8 million people in that city. You guys have the Minister for Loneliness. I know you guys address loneliness on your website. So what are some thoughts on just the way you guys are really striving? I know you've got your community pillars. I'd love to hear more about those.
Yeah, so basically what we wanted to create is a place where people can actually feel comfortable, where people can actually make the most of their lives living here in London. The majority of people, they move in here for work. A lot of the people, they move because they've already got a job, and it can be quite a stressful period to really get to know the city and to make friends and be within a community here. So with our community pillars, personal and kind of group well-being, both mental and physical, professional growth, and then meaningful engagement. We do activities every week, which covers every single one of those pillars. And also each month we look to do like kind of larger events also, and with the partnerships we have within the local area, from co-working spaces to educational platforms, from the professional side to then doing the more well-being aspects, such as the park runs that we do, the tennis clubs that we hold as well, and then the meaningful engagement. For example, on Monday we had a community dinner that we do every week, and since we've started, we used to actually cook the communal dinners ourselves from the staff, but now on Monday we had Lady and Christina from Italy make food for everyone. Next week we have Emily and Sam from the US who are going to be cooking for everyone. So not only have we kind of given the kind of foundations for this kind of community engagement, now we're really seeing that the members themselves are actually taking it upon themselves to really grow that community. We've kind of planted the seed, so to speak, and now we're really seeing that kind of grow within the community itself.
I love that. And then, so as far as the side on technology, and I know, Rob, you've been super deep, and I always like to listen to the record, from a year and a half ago. I had to rewatch it. I don't necessarily like rewatching myself or listening, but, I had to get caught up on what we had talked about last. And I remember with technology, you were like, okay, it's like hospitality, and it's like a hostel, and it's like a hotel, and there wasn't like an all-in-one solution. Like, now that you guys have launched, like what are you guys using in-house as you guys are scaling and growing?
Yeah. So to start with, we've ended up using a property management system called YourLet, which is based around the residential model rather than the hospitality model. However, what it has, which is very useful for us, is the tenancy agreements and all the legal aspects can be done all online. So that means the people who are signing up from Canada, from India, from wherever they are in the world, can all sign the legal agreements, which gets done instantly. We've also had several people who've actually come to view the property, and after viewing it, signed up there and then, and all online, and within 10 minutes, everything is done, all the payments are done, and they're ready to move in. So we're really happy with the property management system that we've had in place regarding the tenancies and the residence side of things. From a community aspect, we're using an app at the moment, which is kind of customized for us. The good thing, we didn't really need to use an app at this stage with the size of our property. However, we wanted to make sure we had everything in place, so when we get our second, third, fourth, 10th site, that we know we have everything in place moving forward. And the app we have, it's really good. It gives us a way to communicate with our members and the members to communicate with us, but also for members to communicate with each other. And this really brings the community together. But we don't want to reduce the human connection, but it's more just helping people to have that connection, on a tech platform as well. On top of that, then we can put all our partners on there. So from our co-working spaces to the local cafes and to the laundry services, etc. All that's on there, so people can easily, whilst they're sat on the tube on the way to work, can be like, oh, I want to have my laundry picked up tomorrow at this time, and easily book that. To just having a look what events and activities we have planned and can easily join and pay to participate and so forth. So the technology isn't there to remove, but more to kind of highlight the community that we actually have here.
Oh, for sure. They work hand in hand, right? Like that helps facilitate, helps people get to your events, systematizes things. You know, I'm always a fan of that. I love that. And then
something worth mentioning on this is that at the beginning, we were actually considering developing our own technology, both in terms of PMS and mobile application. But, we quickly realized that it wasn't possible to develop something as good as what was already there in the market. And therefore, we decided to white label with existing providers.
Oh, good. Yeah, I could speak to that. Software development is fun, but it's a lot of work. It's insane. And even some of the bigger players, around the globe, same thing. They wanted to build it in-house, and now they're like reaching out to white label ours because it's like, it's insane. Well, you'd much rather be on the real estate side, right? Like grabbing, building real estate, getting new properties, getting units up and running. So that makes sense. But I always love hearing and talking about it on the show, like what are people doing to get by, or what did they put together that tries to kind of work to facilitate all of this stuff in such a unique, future of living, software. It's not a one size fits all. So I'm always love having that conversation with people. The other thing I was going to ask you guys about, to follow up again on the last, talk, from both of you, and we'll start with you, Ricardo, is just, the collective is right there. They're very fast growing concept. Reza came on the show. Would love to hear kind of your guys' thoughts on what they've done and how they've expanded to the US. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've done an amazing job. They paved the way from the movement in a way here, especially here in London. There are not really other players beside them. There's a few other players, but I'd say they're the most dominant ones at the moment. I would say compared to what we're doing, I think we're a bit more boutique-y, as in we're trying to build smaller community. Like overall, it's going to be a large community, but most of the buildings we're working on at the moment are ranging between, say, 50 to 250 units maximum, most of which are around 75 to 125 units. So I'd say, I guess that's the main difference from our perspective, the way we look at them. Of course, we're asset light, they're asset heavy, they own their own buildings. So I guess, the other thing from our perspective, we always wanted to be asset light from day one, and we're going to be asset light, for sure for another couple of years. Simply because we thought it would be the best way to go to market and the fastest way to go to market. So I guess that's the main differences I see with the collective.
It's such a perfect soundbite for anybody listening, you guys, because I get that question asked so often. Should we be asset heavy and purchase the buildings, or asset light? And well, there's pros and cons to both, right? You could scale super quickly when you're asset light, right? When you're heavy, it takes longer to scale, but then you own the buildings, so you have that long-term asset, building equity. So yeah, no, definitely. And then Rob, anything to add to that about the collective?
Yeah, well, obviously, what they've done is fantastic. It's definitely the most well-known in Europe, really, and obviously now across in the US that they're growing very, very quickly out there. I've been and seen their properties, and it's really impressive what they're doing. But as Ricardo said, we're looking at it in a slightly different option, at a different kind of model, so to speak. And with us being asset light, from my side being more about the community and everything, what we're actually being asset light means that we can just concentrate purely on creating the community, and what we are is a brand then, so to speak. And we know that we need to do everything we can to make sure each and every one of our members is having the best time possible, because we can't rely on the real estate side, because that's not our business. And that means I can concentrate on just making sure all members have the best time possible.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's one of the reasons also we decided to do asset light in the first place was because we needed to raise capital, and we didn't want to raise too much capital. I think if you have capital, it's probably easier to start asset heavy than asset light. I think starting asset light, if you're aiming to secure an entire building from day one, it's not an easy task, but at the same time, it allows you to kick off operation without diluting yourself too much when you're fundraising.
For sure, definitely. And then Rob, you have background in managing hostels. So I'm curious to know, now that you're there and you're active and you guys have residents, do you see a lot of, are there a lot of commonalities between hostels? I'm just guessing the hospitality side for sure, but is there anything else?
Yeah, so there's a lot of similarities in regards to what we're trying to create here. When I used to obviously run the hostels, we were providing accommodation, but what we were really providing is the experience. And that's the same here. It's all about the experience that we're creating. Anyone these days can make a beautiful home for someone to live, but people aren't moving here because of just a nice accommodation. They're moving here because they want to be part of something. And that's very similar to what we had in the hostel. People stayed with us because they wanted to have that experience. And I think the only major difference is in the hostel, everyone was just on holiday every day. Here, the people are actually working as well. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and I think the general vibe that we're getting as well, and the feel in the place is very positive. You know, people want to interact, people want to be part of this. And as I said earlier, with the events that we're doing now, to begin with, you know, we were kind of running the events ourselves, but with our app that we have a lot of members, you know, creating their own events, and working with us to create the community that they actually want to be part of. I think that's the similarity. The better thing for me with the co-living is obviously people are staying a lot longer rather than a couple of nights. So you can really see how people change over that period, and how people become a lot more comfortable, and how people really experience not just what we offer here within like the four walls, but you know, because we partner with so many people outside of our building, and you can see those people getting those connections with the wider environment and the wider neighborhood, and that's really nice to see. And we've had a few people move out already, but they are moving out into this neighborhood still. So like the impact we're having for Finsbury Park is we're promoting this neighborhood as a desirable place for young professionals to live. And it's also good to know that the people, they don't want to move too far away, so they can always come back and visit.
I love that. What's your guys' minimum lease term?
So it varies. So we got basically the 9 to 12 month, 5 to 8 month, and then kind of 2 to 4 month. But on average, you know, people are staying around 6 months. But a lot of the people that are staying to 6 months, they're coming to the end of their tenancy now. However, they are extending. We've seen multiple people already extend. Most recently, we had one lady from the US who moved over to London, and her husband was going to move over to join, and she was using us as a bit of a landing pad before he arrives. But now her husband's actually moving in with us as well. So it just shows that at the moment the average is 6 months, but the extensions that we're gaining now is really coming through, and it shows the positive impact we're having on our members, and you know, showing we're doing quite a good job, I guess.
No, so you guys have been open 6 months already?
No, not quite, but obviously we've started talking to the people who are going to be moving out in the next month or so, and they've already wanted to extend like another 6 months plus. So it's good to see now that instead of us having more beds becoming available, those beds are staying occupied by our current members as well. And
then, so what month did you guys open? November 2018? When did you officially open? 2019. September?
Yeah.
Okay, so, September 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, and then was there a delay? Because I know when we first talked, it was like 6 months out, and then there was a delay. Was it finding the building? Was it rehabbing the building? Like, what were some things?
So yeah, when we first talked, we were working on several different opportunities, and for one reason or another, they fell through. So that was the kind of main delay for us to actually opening. But obviously now we've actually got this as a proof of concept. Moving forward, we believe it's going to be a lot quicker, because we can actually show to the landlords and the property developers, what we actually create and how we created it. With this property, there's a few delays in development, as always.
Yeah.
It was one of the main kind of, I guess, annoying parts of it, is that we couldn't start marketing the actual property until a week or two before it was open, purely because we never knew when we were actually going to be able to start occupying the property. And yeah, from the 9th of September, it took us around 6 weeks, just less, to get to full occupancy, without marketing the property beforehand, and without actually spending any money on marketing. So we're really pleased with that. But yeah, that was the delays happened in kind of multiple levels really, but
no, I love it. So are you guys still 100% occupancy right now?
yeah.
Oh, congrats. Everybody on the show. Hey, investors and real estate developers listening to the show, every single person is either at 98% or 100% with wait lists for co-living. I'm like, this is like a no-brainer to me, but especially in these amazing, amazing cities. And it's funny living in Europe, you know, when I left Europe to come back to California, like it's on my bucket list to go back and live in, you know, I visited London a few times and it's on my list to at least live there for 1 month. Like it's on my bucket list. I just love, that's such a cool city. So I'm super excited for you guys. So let's talk about the biggest highlights and wins, you know, obviously opening and then becoming fully occupied that quick. What were some other like highlights and big wins you guys have had?
I guess we've closed the seed round towards the end of last year. So we have some new investors on board, mainly family offices or angel investors. We are also finalizing a partnership agreement now with a real estate private equity fund in Paris, whose focus is exclusively on co-living. They're basically the first co-living fund in Europe with a pan-European mandate. So that's great. With them, we're also looking at a number of opportunities. We're hoping to sign now the next deal in Paris, actually, which is going to be roughly 3,800 square meters, 110 bedrooms, more or less. So that we should be signing in the next 2 to 3 weeks and opening in Q4 2020. So in 6 to 9 months, more or less.
Nice. You guys have Paris in the pipeline. Any other cities you guys can announce that you might be going into?
Yeah. So Paris is, I guess, the main deal we've been working on. We're working on another deal in Reading. That's roughly 65 bedrooms. Very central. I'm not sure. Reading, it's a big technology city just outside of London. So you have companies like Oracle, Microsoft. You have a big university. Visa is there. So it's a really great place to be, and it's literally 25 minutes from central London. So Reading, it's a big project we'll be working on now. And again, we should be signing within weeks. And then we're working also with a fund in Paris. We're working on other projects in Glasgow. We're working with another developer on a project in Brighton. So overall, it's roughly 400 beds that we're currently working on, but we should be signing approximately 180 within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Awesome. Love it. You guys know your numbers. That's amazing. So so we talked about the big wins and the highlights. Now, what was on the challenging side?
I mean, definitely securing a lease on a building as the first building, having no track record as co-living operators. My background was on the real estate side, on development and investments. Rob's hospitality, yes, running assets, but not necessarily co-living assets. So being a new asset class and not having done it before, obviously was a very challenging task to convince any landlord or developer to give us a building. So I'd say by far that was the biggest barrier from day one. Also potentially fundraising initially, the first pre-seed round we did without having an asset signed was also quite challenging. What else?
Yeah, they were definitely the main ones. Obviously, our first building, it was good fun. Don't get me wrong, but there's a few challenging moments. Nothing to do with the building itself, but the mains water pipe burst on our street, which meant that we just opened and then we had no water for 3 days. So that was quite challenging, but nothing to do with us. It happened on outside our abilities basically to deal with. But yeah, that was never good. Within the first month of opening, to then have no water was a challenge. But apart from that, I think everything's gone really smoothly. If anything, it's been very positive. Actually seeing what we planned and actually see it actually happen, and to see the responses we're getting from our members. So the hardest part was getting our foot in the door. Now we've got our foot in the door. The amount of people, investors and interested parties that contact us and want to come and visit the property and see what we're doing. it's really positive.
Yeah.
It was just getting that foot through the door to begin with was the only challenge that we really faced.
And I think people listening and watching have, especially current operators, like have empathy, you know, and they probably are smiling right now because A, they know there's tons of challenges, and B, especially the ones that started in 2012, which like blows my mind, like how hard it would have been to explain this concept in 2012, like blows my mind. So I think they're listening like, yeah, we get it. Like having to talk to investors and the investor doesn't get it. So no, thank you so much for sharing those. And that's what's fun about these second interviews is that we get to ask different questions. And so another one I like asking on the second go around is your guys' thoughts on fractional ownership. Is that anything you guys have kind of considered or looked at for the future?
In terms of actual owning the assets and
offering it to the guests and residents to maybe somehow purchase a piece of your company or a piece of real estate, you know, down the road versus just renting.
Yeah, I mean, we believe people like millennials, especially, which is our target demographic, we think they're more interested in the experience rather than actually owning or co-owning the assets. So we think that, you know, they'd be more willing to spend their money on, you know, renting and then eventually everything on top of that, all the services, additional services that we're offering. So I'm not sure. I don't see ourselves getting into that to that market, to be honest. Yeah.
I think, you know, from the type of members we have here, you know, a lot of them, it's not that they can't afford to potentially, you know, buy somewhere themselves. It's because they don't want to buy something at the moment. They don't want to have that kind of like attachment, so to speak. So a kind of different way to look at it then is we've got some of the members here, or one of them in particular, he's living between here and Germany. So what we've worked out with him is, you know, he doesn't obviously own like a piece of the property, so to speak, but he's taken the long-term lease for 12 months. But when he's away, we're actually offering him to be able to sublet that room then, and that additional revenue that we get from that, we can then profit share with him. So they can get a bit of a return, even though they're not living here full time, but rather than, you know, staying in a hotel 3-4 days a week, and you know, then moving back and forth. This way he knows whenever he's in London, he has the comfort of Gravity Co-Living, and the members and the community here. But also, you know, he can potentially make a little bit of kind of money back on his rent by subletting it to, you know, the right type of person.
That's cool. And then you guys still have to approve that resident that's moving in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then, okay, so without naming any names, do you have any concerns about how some co-living concepts are operating? You know, not anywhere in the world, doesn't have to be London.
Yeah, well,
Rob jumped on that.
No, the one thing that annoys me the most is a lot of people are jumping on the word co-living and using the word co-living, but it's not technically a co-living space. For example, there's a lot in the UK. You've got HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, and sharing a house and renting a room in a house is completely different to being in a co-living community. And a lot of these HMOs are putting the word co-living in their advert and putting the price up a little bit. And then people from all over the world then are going, oh, I hear about co-living, I want to try it out. They'll then go there and they'll be like, oh, this is nothing different to renting a room in a normal house. And that way then those people may never look at co-living ever again. And I think that's the only issue I have is lots of people jumping on the word co-living without actually really, you know, being a co-living space. There's living with someone and there's co-living. I think is two separate things.
Difference. I think it's educational, right? It's just going to be an educational piece. And you're right. It's going to happen once to that person. I mean, hopefully they don't turn away completely from co-living. I think then they move into a real co-living community and they're like, oh, this is really what the essence. Yeah. Ricardo, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I see when we bid for assets, we very often bid against Airbnb or short-term let operators that market themselves as co-living operators. And that's something that obviously, we don't see the co-living market being a short let market. You know, we operate mainly in the 5 to 8 months type of stay, which is completely different from, you know, Airbnb or service apartment. And of course, because they do short-term rentals, they can eventually generate slightly higher, net profit for the building and for the owners, therefore bid higher on securing assets. So that's something that, in my opinion, should be regulated, more. There's already regulation in place, but not, councils or, they don't seem to do much about these operators. So I think once we get these operators out of the equation, real co-living operators will be emerging in a much easier way because, you're not competing against all this short let operators.
No, so remind me in London, because I know a lot of Europe has Airbnb has like really strict rules, like 30-day minimum, and you can only, like Amsterdam, you can only rent your primary residence out for, I think, 30 days out of the entire year. Like, what's London?
It's 90 days is the max you can rent out your space for, basically on a short-term basis. So yeah, that's basically the regulation in London.
Yeah, but except most operators don't really care, and they just rent out the throughout the year short term.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because it's too hard to regulate. Like they're still doing it.
There's so many people doing it and not enough people checking it, I guess. Which, for a property owner, then, if they're going to be receiving X amount of this operator, then they're happy. They don't really mind if it's not being done fully legitimately, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I'm a big Airbnb fan, honestly, and I like what they've done, how they've reused, how people can rent out their rooms and make more income on their houses. And I mean, it definitely got a little out of control because people were then purchasing homes, especially in Southern California. They were buying a bunch of homes and then putting them all on Airbnb and driving up all the local rents. However, what it also has done is some municipalities they got kind of burned by Airbnb in their city, because it caused some issues and now they're scared to bring co-living in. So again, I think you guys are right. It's just showing like, hey, wait a minute, this is our average stay is this long and it's not people on holiday and it's, so that's more, again, another education piece that everybody that will put out there.
I think it's the management of co-living spaces as well, which really makes the difference. It's like if you look at, the collective quarters, Gravity, Common, all these places, you've got a community manager around, you've got people around to make sure that, everything is in order compared to when you look at, some Airbnb places, like they rent out the place and there's no one there to kind of look after those people. And I think that's the difference with a lot of, local governments and general governments in all over the world, in all the major cities. They need to realize is that, with co-living, a lot of the operators, they're there, 24/7 basically, making sure that everything is running smoothly and it's not having a negative effect on the actual community and the local neighborhood.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then, so we talked about some of the, without naming names, that was great, but are there any other brands, in the world that like one or two that you guys say, wow, we really like what they're doing?
I admire quite a lot Hamlet in Asia. Started in Singapore. I spoke with the founder a few times, Johan, and they seem to be doing very, very well, obviously. I like the fact that they started with what we call the fractional model, which is something we've never done. We've considered doing for a long time, but eventually we decided to go for an entire building right away. Yeah. So it started fractional, so it started small, then scaled up to an entire building. And now obviously they have some massive investors behind, and I heard they just signed a deal with I think it's Mitsubishi estate in Japan to roll out about thousands of beds across Japan. So yeah, sounds like they're doing very well.
Yeah, no, we'll have to they were on this show a while back, so we'll have to bring them back on soon.
Yeah.
Cool. How about you, Rob? Anybody you like?
From being in London and obviously starting our own journey in London, I've got to take my hat off to the collective. They really made it easier then for new people jumping into co-living, because they've gone to the local government. They really helped kind of give that path of co-living into London and into the UK in general. I think they've learned a lot on the way, which they've been doing it for such a long time now that that people like us and other co-living operators can learn from them. So I think they've done a great job. I also like Quarters. I like what they've done as well in obviously like Germany, and now they're in the US also. And I think for me, it's more that I like what they're doing. Their buildings look fantastic, but it's also that's where we want to kind of go next as well. We want to become that operator that people are saying like, oh wow, they've done really well. They've gone into these new markets. They've helped kind of create that path for others to kind of join the movement, so to speak. So yeah, I have to take my hats off to both of them. I think they've done a great job for the co-living kind of sector and industry in general.
Love that. And I feel like I need to start having a little scoreboard and like marking off these every time I ask that question. That's great. And then, and love hearing, what you guys are doing with Gravity Co-Living. And, I know we went over kind of like your future pipeline and the cities you guys are going into. So we're super excited to watch your growth. And so my last question for both of you, so we'll start with Ricardo, is what's one piece of advice for anybody watching or listening to the show, that's either a current operator now of co-living or getting ready to become an operator? One piece of advice from each of you.
Okay, so I'd say I have a piece of advice for people that want to start an operating business within the co-living space. I would say if you can't find a building, an entire building, start fractional, because eventually that will lead you to get an entire building. If you wait to get just an entire building as the first asset you manage, then it might take very long and it could discourage you. And then, I would say that's the main advice I would give to anyone starting in the co-living space now.
That's amazing advice. In California, Los Angeles, and San Diego, they've done that. So when he says fractional, it means, maybe a real estate developer is developing, a 200 unit complex. Maybe you're going to take 20% of that. You're going to take 40 units of that entire building. You're going to partner with the developer and make some sort of an agreement, whether it's profit sharing or rent. And I love that. That is some great advice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
From me, I think the most important thing for any operator is to not forget the reason you're doing this, and it's for the people. As in, like when you grow and when you expand, it's sometimes you're sometimes looking at kind of profit margins more so than the real reason why we started it. And for me, what makes my day is seeing the kind of the difference we're making to our members, and seeing the kind of impact that we're having in the local community as well. I think you always need to kind of keep that moving forward, because if you lose that, then you lose the whole essence of what co-living is truly about. So always have some hippie guy involved in your plans to make sure you never lose that.
I love that. And then you guys, two quick questions, because you guys have a third co-founder, right?
Yes.
I'm technically not a co-founder. I'm just the first hire.
Okay, you're the first hire. Okay, so there's two. How many founders total?
Well, it's two, and Rob joined us basically right after we set up the company. So he's a partner and co-founder as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, awesome. Oh my gosh. And then, and for events, do you guys invite the outside community in?
Yeah, so we do for kind of certain events, and obviously moving forward with larger larger sites, then we'd look to do that more. But rather than inviting the outside people in, we a lot of the times take our members out and let them kind of experience the local neighborhood in that way. So, for example, we do like a pub quiz on a Thursday where we go to one of our local local bars here. It's good because we've got someone from every continent basically in the world, so we can cover most of the questions quite well. We do the park run every Saturday morning, which is like a 5-kilometer run. I don't do it myself, but they do the 5-kilometer run with the local neighborhood, and it's a good way for the local neighborhood to get to know us, and for our members to get to know the local neighborhood as well. And we can we don't want to kind of keep people inside our four walls. As I said, we want them to experience what Finsbury Park and this neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods have to offer.
I love that. Well, I promise to come visit Gravity Co-Living next time I'm in London. I'm waiting. I'm in sunny San Diego still in the wintertime. It's like 70 degrees. So I'll wait until the spring to come back over. But I will for sure come visit you guys in person. And thank you so much for coming on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out kindred.io, KNDRD.io. Thanks. And a quick thank you to SPX Agency for all of the graphics, animation, and design on our YouTube channel.